Whoops. Good morning, Predicted family. I actually was just trying to do some settings and flipped over to the live scene. So, oh well, here we go. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope you're able to get out and enjoy some of this nice weather wherever you are. It was pretty nice and warm. It was like summer weather outside. We spent the whole weekend making a huge leaf pile because I got like 6 acres and tons of trees, and kids jumped in the leaf piles like all weekend. It was great. So let's dig in here. We had a pretty eventful Friday. We got down to the low end of the range for the week. Let me zoom out just a hair so we can see the whole week. There we go. So, you can see, made a nice push up Monday into Tuesday with the gap up, and then the slide back down repeatedly. But every day it provided some great opportunity, and I want to point out, Monday, pump up and flag. A gap up on Tuesday, which gives you the come on back to fill the gap possibility, right? Then, every day, we popped and then dropped a little bit. Then we would pop and drop a little bit. To me, they were loading, right? And they let it drift down right back to the start of the week for that big old load that we saw on Friday, right? Pretty quick out the gate, we were saying this looks great to go long. We aren't trying to get down to retest overnight lows. And we were holding in we hit our open range buy zones on the tool. Then we ran up to the daily 21, our squeeze tops where we know we can reverse. We played it back down to VWAP and then right back up to and through the daily 21. That 1 hour squeeze cloud, or actually is that 2 hour? 2 hour squeeze cloud. And we pushed through our key zone 3741, then almost up to that 3773 during the cash session. You're getting an echo. Let me double check. Let me double check one thing, sorry. I'm sorry if you're getting an echo, maybe just reload. Is anyone else hearing an echo? Anyone else tuned in hearing an echo, or is it lagged repeating? I'm not sure. It should be coming through clear. I don't think any settings have changed. I just double checked. So somebody else in the chat, just let me know. We almost made it up to that 3773. At the end of the day, Friday. Then we kind of pushed slowly up into it, and Sunday night gapped up, or pushed off of it. Okay, yeah, no one else is getting an echo. You might need to just hit refresh on your browser. Either way, last night we moved from that 3773 straight up to our 3807, and then fade back to our 3741, bouncing right back through 3773. So as you can see, these key levels that I cover with you folks are always going to be important and going to potentially be inflection points. So every time I, cover prep, I definitely recommend that you mark these levels. They don't have to be to the cent, and really they're only to the cent because I was probably grabbing a key level on a higher time frame, on a wick or this or that. Either way, point being, I'm always saying 37.41, 73, 38.07, So definitely mark those key levels because, if you're a futures trader in here and you were playing the session last night, it could have been a very easy, bracket order, play on up to the next level with a bracket order to turn around, to play down to the next level, down to the next. So, just something to keep in mind as I cover these levels. Definitely mark them. So that's it for review, kind of going into what we can see for today. We are, in this range, the overnight range, right from key level to key level. So that gives us a nice wide 1 hour squeeze that is basically above, at those key levels. We'll have to see. We're starting a big week in tech earnings. So before we go a little, or any further than for what we can see for today, let me pull up the economic calendar. All right, for today, we've got some PMI data coming out around 9:45. We've got tomorrow, some at 9 a.m., some home price data and consumer confidence index at 10 a.m. And then Wednesday, some more home data and trade in goods. But the big ones this week are Thursday and Friday. We've got GDP. We've always got our jobless claims, some core capital orders, and then the big one we have PCE. We had this, just a few weeks ago. If you go back and look, you can see kind of the reaction off of the PCE data. So we have another one of those this week on Friday. So, kind of light in the economic data early in the week, Thursday and Friday, the big ones. We can also maybe take a look into next week to see some PMI data coming, some jobs data, more jobs data, and an FOMC, where we'll talk about rate hikes. This one does have Powell speaking after, so that's next week to look forward to, right after this big week in tech earnings. Speaking of tech earnings, let's pull up the schedule just so we can see what's on the docket. Come on, where are you? There we go. No, that's last week's. There we go. So in our Discord channel, or Discord server, we do have an earnings channel where we drop in the Earning Whispers tweets. So, big week ahead. Excuse me just one second. Get a drink. All right, that's better. So, coming into this week, we do have a little bit more on the finance as well. I'm not saying it's just big tech earnings. There is plenty going on this week. But on Tuesday, the big ones after the bell, Microsoft and Google. We've also got GM, we've got Visa, Chipotle, GE. There's plenty going on this week. Spotify, Boeing on Wednesday. So that's another big one. Big weight on Boeing. Then we have Facebook on Wednesday after the close. Oh, the big tech leader, ServiceNow, right? Shopify Thursday before open. Amazon after close. So e-commerce day on Thursday. Along with Caterpillar, Southwest, MasterCard, Pinterest, just so much going on this week. And to wrap it all up, some oil on Friday, Exxon, Chevron. We have some other oil peppered in here during the week. But overall, there's always the big week in tech earnings every season, and this is pretty much it. We do have another couple of tech earnings next week as we close out the month and start the new one. Just talking about some of the big tech names. We also have Apple on Thursday. Sorry, I did miss that name. So, the big ones, most of your FANG, or whatever you might want to call it now, is reporting this week. So let's see what we get with all of that data coming out. Likely going to be some moves up, some moves down. But also with the economic data, we have GDP, PCE, very important factors in inflation. And if we see a lot of big tech names reporting decent earnings for this last quarter, this week, that could also lead to some inflation indication and might lead to some interesting action and direction. Real quick, let's just keep in mind, we do have a daily squeeze in place, right? If you're new to predicted trades, one of the tools we provide is this handy dandy squeeze cloud. It basically just visualizes what represents that squeeze whenever we get into a squeeze. So on ES right now, on all indices, we are in daily squeezes, and we are pulling up to the top of them. Can we push right through them? Yes, but it usually takes a couple of days. And just how we used to have a thin daily squeeze that got thicker, to fire and open up and disappear, we have to push against it, keep pushing against it until it gets thinner and thinner, and then we push through. We never know with some of the tech earnings this week. It could push us and gap us above, but yeah, not typically, right? So, just want to keep in mind that we have that daily squeeze, and we also have the daily 50 coming down to meet us. It sits right up above in one of our zones, and as the week progresses, it will slowly come down bit by bit. So, just a couple of key targets above and things to consider. And one last thing. Come on. Just to kind of go back and look where we're at. Let's actually go to a 1 hour. We're pulling back up near recent highs from the last bounce. We had 2 good days up, even a third day with a nice upside move, and then we went down for new lows, right? We're pulling back up to this price consolidation, so we could see some of the same price consolidation between these 3 key levels: 3807, 3773, 3741. We could spend a little more time here, which is still okay and still potentially bullish. We could also start pushing up to the next key levels and this first Keltner up after coming off of the daily mean and kind of retesting it overnight. So, let's just take a quick look and zoom in. And let's go ahead and turn on our predicted trades tool. Come on. We can see we went up to our open range sell zone, peaked a hair past it, then came back to our open range buy zone, peaked a little past it, all to tag key levels in those looks beyond. And now you can see we have done the same, approached that overnight high, and now we're creeping back to the overnight open level, right back near this 3773. So, as you can guess, if we have a little dip and hold our open range buy zone, I'll likely be going long. If we open in our open range sell zone or near it and catch a quick pop to test overnight highs, might also fade back to that open range buy zone. We have our overnight lows near this 37.41, our highs near that 38.07. Both are in play today. We could reject, slip back, even slip our open range buy zone to tag key level again, just to bounce back up. We have a little bit of a light day on the earnings schedule today, and tomorrow it picks up a little more. So we could see today stay kind of inside these key levels and likely still print a green candle, but anything possible. Obviously, if we start to slip back below 37.41 in this daily mean, there's still a good amount of selling pressure. And we can likely go down to test the daily 8, 37.21, and our outer shaded region, which is back down near that 37.08. So let's see just how volatile we'll get this week. We have our key levels to the upside and downside. Go ahead and hide this diamond and move on. On to NQ. One last point, just as I look at where POC is on ES, it jumped around a lot in the last 2 weeks. So definitely check in on your POC point of control. It's part of, we get it from our volume profile, right? So definitely check where that point of control sits, as it has moved around. It was sitting way down at like 3,600. At one point, I think it popped above 3,700. Near 36.92 at one point, and now it sits back at 36.86. Overall, we might get some of those pop and fades, just like we got last week. Pop on some interesting earnings, fade back. We could see some of that and drift back to point of control this week. If that happens, I'm expecting a decent bounce, though, off of it. We just have to see how much the selling pressure is this week, and if the buying pressure that we are seeing, right, it's kind of been building, pops in the morning and letting it fade back, and then a big push. So let's see if buying pressure remains, if bears are still very present and want to push us down to retest 3,700. On to NQ. Finally, above the daily 21, it's been pretty hard resistance, while other indices got above, like Ready. Earlier in the week, NQ was rejecting repeatedly. So now that it's above, like to see that it is turning into support. Overall, let's see if we want to get back and test that that daily 21 at around that 325. If we want to get down near pre-market low, that 250, or back to the daily 8 and 15 for another test, which would still be establishing a higher low. If we, make it down here and bounce there. But we could easily stay up in this range, just like on ES. We have our overnight high near this big psych level, 11,500. We've got our overnight low around 250. So let's just see how we oscillate there. If buyers can step in and get us back to test those highs. The daily squeeze sits a little further up. Not quite as close on NQ, but we do have time, or some room to move. The daily squeeze sitting up near our next key level, 11,677, up near that first Keltner to the upside. The daily 50 sitting up near that psych level, 12,000. So let's see if we make it up to see the daily 50 this week. They're ready. As I was saying, at least Reddy got up above the daily 21 and pretty much tapped its daily squeeze, came back to our key level at 1700, and then caught a bounce right back up above the daily 21, holding and testing all of those moving averages overnight. So we know where our support is now that we are back above the daily moving averages. Let's see, 1736 is currently POC, which is down near the pre-market lows, overnight lows. So we are getting close to the top of a 1 hour, 30-minute squeeze near open. We're going to be dealing with a little bit of a gap up. The bottom of that squeeze sits back down near 1700, so we have a wide range today. There are plenty of times we see this hourly or 2 hour squeeze in a much tighter configuration. So let's see if moving averages can keep Reddy up. If it starts to break below, we are likely coming back to test the lows from Friday near 1700, near these squeeze bottoms. But if we can hold up in the middle of these squeezes at these daily moving averages, looking to, we'll see if Reddy can get back up to overnight highs 1770, 1780, where you can see we topped out, peaked higher before heading lower. So 1780, the big key number, and then that daily 50 right up at 1807. Past cycle level 1800 and first daily Keltner. YM. I really, really like this squeeze, the daily squeeze on YM. Because as you can see, it's starting to open up as we push into it. YM was very strong on Friday, made it from the daily 21 to the daily 50. In fact, we were calling that out in the room, like, ooh, she just keeps trucking. Can she hit the 50 before close? It was very close. Just like we had that target, 37.73 on ES. I love it when these things overlap. We talked about that in prep on Friday. If we can move up to get to that daily 50, it'll be like ES getting to 73, and that's what we got. So, squeaky chair. Let's see. Pulled back and hit 31,000, big key psych level overnight. So again, let's see if we can hold above that 31,000 psych level. If we start to lose it, then we're probably coming back to test 800 and potentially this daily 8. But if we can hold 31,000, maybe even this daily 50 and first Keltner on a pullback. Next key is zone, 31,462, 31,616. And we kind of sit in between that zone above and support below with that big key psych level kind of at those overnight lows. Apple has earnings this week and definitely been on a nice trajectory higher from our key zone below through and back to test our 138 zone, and then continuing up to our 144, 145, and even pushing up to that 147.5 on Friday. So I know this is a little busy for some folks that like a cleaner chart. I can, real quick, go ahead and strip this down so you can see those key levels. So take a little screenshot or mark this time in the video so you can grab your Apple levels, whatnot. I cover these all the time. And as you can see, I don't mark every single candle, close, high wick, low wick. I go back and do my own technical analysis that I've been refining for years and grab what are the big important key levels. So, just looking at those very simply and looking at this week, if we can start to make our way through 147.5, we do have some big key levels that we could get stuck in here for a bit, and that psych level 150. If we can take out 150, next big key level 153.85. But if we cannot get through these key levels, likely coming back to retest 144, 145, which was pretty much the ceiling last week that we kept rejecting, even the previous Friday. So, can't get through, coming back to hold these and get a bounce to retest. Definitely want to see Apple hold above these 144, 145 this week and going into earnings to support this rally moving higher on the market. The market's going to go wherever Apple goes. It has so much weight. So those are your key levels. Let me just turn back on all of our tools. So we're coming to the top of a 4-hour squeeze that's starting to open, which could lend to that 4-hour squeeze firing up into our daily squeeze, which has started to form. Just like it. The indices that we covered, the daily 50s coming down to that daily squeeze. So let's see if Apple has a slow grind higher to make it up to the next key zone, a rally into earnings. You know, we did have that Apple news, I think it was this day exactly right here, where midday the whole market dropped because Apple said they were lowering production, but you can see Apple just held the base it dropped to, and they loaded, and now we're starting to break away from that consolidation. So let's see if they just continue buying this thing up to daily squeeze top around 152 and up to our zone above where the daily 50 sits. That daily 50 will slowly creep into this squeeze top. This daily squeeze will slowly get a little thicker as the week progresses. So that's the outlook on Apple. AMD. Called this one out the last couple of weeks. We're stuck between two big key levels, 156, which is very key. It was a huge wall to get through during COVID recovery. And once it got through, that has been a huge level to come back and retest. And as you can see, for weeks, we have just been hitting 56 and they buy, 56 and they buy. We had that play, what was it, Wednesday into Thursday? I called out a trade on that 60 call at 20 cents on Wednesday's close that we got into. And those ran up to like $1.10 as they got in the money, and we hit 60. And then we fade back to 56 and above 58. Let's see if this is going to be the week where they start to break out of this range of consolidation. We have earnings next week on AMD, but if you've looked around, earnings have gone well on chips lately. Even though AMD, you know, I think it was a few weeks back now, announced a 1 billion revenue slip or forecast slip, something like that. So, even though they announced that, they've already kind of been beaten up. They've come from third Keltner, second, first. Now we're at first Keltner. So, let's see if we can this week start to see maybe a pre-earnings run. You know, with all the rest of big tech having earnings this week, their premiums are going to be elevated. So we could see chips that report next week getting a little love, especially if the market is in a nice rally. So overall, on AMD, let's see if we can continue to push off of 58.75 through 60 and start to make our way to about 62.5, 63, where the daily 21 sits. Beyond that, next key level 65. But you could easily reject 60, this daily 15, let these things come down a little more, pulling back to 56 before taking off again. But, you know, hopefully let's see, hopefully we've spent enough time at 56 that they're ready to depart to the upside. Amazon reports this week, has already made some good pushes, and now we are up to the top of a daily squeeze at a key level, going into earnings, this 4-hour squeeze opening up and ready to fire. If we have a dip this morning, let's see if we go back to these overnight lows at 118. If we can't hold those, coming back to the daily 21 for a test. But if we can hold up and keep pushing, already setting some new highs this morning. Next key level, 122.25, and the daily 50 at about 124.5, 124 up at the top of this daily squeeze. BA. Been on a nice steady uptrend, and it was quite an aggressive trend that it just kept holding. Slipped through it just enough on Friday, but rallied back and testing it. Or, the high in the morning was testing it again. Still pushing higher this morning. Going to adjust this just to be a little less aggressive. And BA does report this week. There we go. Let's see if BA continues to ride this trend line into earnings. If we do come back to retest 140 big key psych level right near that overnight low, anything below that 138.5. And if we can keep trucking to the upside, hey, daily 50 around 146.5 near that second Keltner to the upside. Cat reports this week as well. Made an amazing move on Friday. I know that not everyone in here trades Cat, but if you haven't noticed, the market's been making decent moves on Friday, but Cat has been a big part of that. And she has earnings this week. So they, on a 0 day, took her from $1.80 to $1.90. She does not usually have a 10-day move on a 6.8 TR. So either way, made it back above our 185.88. We have our 189. Could kind of oscillate here, but we are breaking out of this kind of daily consolidation range that we have been in, trapped below that 85 and the daily 21 as it's crept higher. So if we can push through 189.5, next key level 193.83 on the journey to 200, where the daily 200 sits with our third Keltner to the upside. So depending on how earnings go, we could see a climb into earnings this week around this 193.83. If earnings goes well, we could see a pop up to 200. Coin. Don't think they report this week. No, they're next week. But Coin has been making some very interesting and dramatic moves. I definitely recommend to watch this name lately. Thank you, Star, for bringing up the point that she's been really shaken lately. And, has gone from this 69.5 to 61 just repeatedly. Up to the 50, back to 61, back on its, or making the journey back through the daily moving averages to that 69.70. So if we can hold, let's see, the 66, this daily 8, and the overnight lows at 65 today. Looking for Coin to continue to the upside back to 69.70. 71, where the daily 50 sits, in an effort to get back up to this 74 at the top of this daily squeeze, and then beyond that, that's 78.56 if it keeps moving. Does have earnings next week. Google, earnings tomorrow after the bell. Well, made it from that squeeze top back down to the first Keltner down, and then back through moving averages and through our key levels. Let's see if 101, 100 can hold up today. We have the daily 21 in there as well. So we have plenty of support to keep moving higher to 103, recent high, and then beyond that, the daily 50 up at 105. GS. Nice fade back to the daily mean. Push hard off of it Friday. As we look at each of these names that hit something key and took off on Friday, it lends to why we made the move up. And yes, there's plenty of reasons. It was OPEX, big money and institutions are yellowing lately, and we had big tech earnings. So to see all of them pop on the Friday before is very common. Just go back and look. So anyway, GS made it back to the daily 50 and 200 and still looking strong. Approaching this big key psych level 300. If she has a dip to fill the gap, Would like to see it hold up at this 322.5 where the daily 50 sits, or 325, which is pretty much filling the gap, right? So if she can hold up, looking to push through that 330 and continue up through that first Keltner to psych level 340, 342. But we'll just have to see. We do have a daily squeeze firing. Have to see if buyers remain strong on the market. JPM, kind of the same thing. Has not quite completed the journey back to this 125 and that daily 200, but approaching third Keltner after firing that squeeze up. So would not be surprised for us to tag all these items and then take a little break on finance, or at least JPM, as it's getting a little overextended to the upside after such strong pushes. You know, after setting lows with the market, did not come back to set lows like the market did, just held up to keep moving. And they've already reported decent earnings. Meta reporting this week, not looking at all as good. Went down hard on those snap earnings. Could there be a catch-up trade here? Potentially, but I'm not going to be playing Meta, and especially not on its earnings week. Psych level 130 above, 125 below, and a wedge if we can break up. Back to 132 where the daily 8 is at the top of this little 1 hour squeeze. 133 where the daily 15 sits. 135-ish where the 136-ish where the daily 21 sits. Upside targets, if she slips back, 123. Almost made it on this pull down, but holding. Microsoft. Did a great job staying above this 232 last week. Opened right at it, moved up, faded back, bounced at it, and now we're pushing up. 244, 245 already. Next big key levels, 247-ish and 250. First Keltner and the daily 50. I'm sorry, the daily squeeze. The daily 50 sits just a hair above at that 253, right near our next key level, 254.5. Just upside targets for Microsoft, who also reports this week. Netflix has already reported, flagged all week after reporting, right, into Friday to make that big move higher. Getting back to 290 and a hair higher this morning. Right now it's mission 300 and this 306. We are still in the middle of a gap fill that spans up to 330. So again, with Big Tech reporting this week, let's see if Big Tech continues a little rally into their earnings. We could see Netflix continue to get some love and keep trucking. It is at third Keltner, which makes it a hair extended, but it got there after sitting for a long time, after going down on earnings, and made a push straight to third Keltner. And as you can see, third Keltner continues to grind up as we continue to grind higher. So she can move past third Keltner easily and keep trucking. You could also have a pullback and sit for a little bit, allowing the third Keltners to get themselves up a little higher. But ultimately, we are going through a gap fill from this earnings. Let's see if it continues up to fill the gap. And if we do have a dip, if we do have a dip today, looking for that 280 and that daily 200 to hold, basically where we were topping out last week. What was resistance should become support to continue the move. NVIDIA. Steady uptrend. I draw a trend line, from these lows. As long as it can hold that trend line and these daily move, or these, daily 15, daily 8, we are continuing to set higher lows. Trying to get through this 125.42. NVIDIA reports in a couple of weeks, so she has time. Next key levels, if we can get through 125 and this 127 up to psych level 130, 131, and the top of this daily squeeze. Daily 50 still sits way above that. No, Nvidia's been getting beat up. So let's see if we can get through this 125.42. Let's see if we reject it early and come back to retest overnight lows or pre-market lows around 122.5. Right near these daily moving averages. QQQ. Made that nice push, just like NQ back over the daily 21, retested overnight. So let's see if we can stay above, at the lows, this 273.5-ish, 274.5, and 275 psych level, providing support today. See if we can stay above those, start to make our way through 278 to the next key level, 280, 282.5, 285, up on the top of this daily squeeze. I think the daily 50 sits a hair higher at 290, 291. I'll cover shop just because she does report this week. Made a decent move, on Friday. Not the prettiest of moves. Not going to be playing her because I don't like to play elevated premiums. I'm an options trader. I'm not going to be playing equity on her. But we've got targets above, up at 31 with the daily 50, and this 31.5, 32 with the daily squeeze, right near these highs. So if she's going to continue higher, those are the targets. If she rejects to come back, daily moving averages below and squeeze bottom. Oh no, don't freeze on me. There we go. Snow reports at the end of November, so we got plenty of time there, but I bring it up because, made it down to the daily squeeze, consolidated between some gaps. Went to fill that gap last week, make it back above moving averages, and hold up quite well, and she did get bought up on Friday. So Snow has kind of made it back to 150 and now starts the journey higher with the goal of getting back to this daily 200, top of this daily squeeze. But this was also a 2-day squeeze. Interesting. So sat at the bottom of a 2-day squeeze, a 1-day pops up. We can push through that daily squeeze top. We can get back to this big key psych level that I was getting to, 200 at the top of the 2-day squeeze. So could set up some interesting opportunity this week as we are starting to break out or get near the top of last week's range. After the previous week kept us in range, pushed up and stayed in this range. So she could start an interesting move higher and up to this daily 200 to test, and then beyond to the 200. So just something to keep in view this week. If she has a pullback, let's see if she holds the daily 50 and daily moving averages to catch a bounce. SPX. If we can continue higher, let's see, we're having a gap up of about 30 points almost. So going to be opening near 37.75, 37.80. So we'll be kind of gapping outside of the squeeze, so it'll likely start to get thin and disappear. If we have a pullback to fill the gap, that is at 37.52, and kind of near the highs of the last gap that we filled after that gap up, and fade back, and then higher. So let's see if we can hold above that 37.52, 37.36 if we do have a dip, and continue higher up to 3800 big key psych level, 3804 first Keltner, and 3815 up in the top of this daily squeeze. And beyond that, daily 50 up near 3886 and 3900 where the second Keltner to the upside sits. Just talking about if the rally is going to continue, some upside targets. SPY. Same deal. fought our way back to 374, which was resistance. So during the cash session, we'd love to see us hold above 374. If we start to lose that to go visit pre-market low, we are likely, we do have a little squeeze popping up there. So we could, if we lose 374, go to retest pre-market low and the squeeze bottom. We could even slip it enough to tag 370, but then looking for a bounce back to 374. We could also just hold at 374. What was resistance could now be support to push us from 374 up to 380, 381.5, big key level at the top of this daily squeeze. And beyond that, the daily 50 sits at our next key zone. See how that works out? So perfect. Tesla. Oh, just for fun, when does Square report? Next week. Okay, could see something interesting in Square. Going into earnings just like everything else. Down at these daily squeezes, or daily moving averages after coming off of a daily squeeze bottom. Could make a nice move up. Has to break out of this range. Daily 21 and 59. With the goal of getting up to daily squeeze top from 62 up to about 65 where that daily 50 sits. So could be an interesting move on Square this week leading into earnings next. Tesla. Man. Yep, Tesla is the lagger. But again, let's think about what we have seen lately. I mean, Tesla's been getting very beat up. It's been sitting at third Keltner for days, just riding it down. Hit some key levels at 206. Big old push up. Came right back before earnings. And, you know, it slipped that 206 just a hair, but it didn't get down to that psych level 200. And what have they done when it gets down near here? Buy it up. Buy it up. And now we're back at 206. So there's a lot of buyers defending under this 206, not even letting it get to 200. Basically, as long as we can continue to hold here, we could see Tesla start to finally make the relief bounce to get it back to the daily mean. I mean, the whole market is above the daily mean for the most part. So Tesla could potentially see a catch up and off of a double bottom around here. Something to keep in mind. Has earnings behind her. So if she can move her way up, 206, 210, 216, top of this 2-hour squeeze, bottom of that 2-hour squeeze right back near our lows. So if we start to slip off of this range of 206, 210, coming back to test those lows and that 2-hour squeeze bottom, maybe even get that tap of 200. But either way, these are your key levels to the upside if we get out of this 2-hour squeeze, 223, and the effort to get back to this 230, 233. The daily 21 is almost caught up to that zone and that recent high. UVXY. If we are going to see continuation of the upside in the market, want to see UVXY stay under 12, just like it did on Friday, make its way, continuing to make its way down to test 11.5 and to push out of these squeezes and get down to the bottom of a daily squeeze down near 11 where the daily 50 sits. So let's see if we can continue this departure from the daily mean and these other daily moving averages, right? And make it down to the daily 50 on UVXY while the market tries to make its way up to the 50. VIX. Interesting gap up in VIX, but coming right back. For upside in the market, I would like to see VIX stay below this daily 21 like it did on Friday. And if it has to get above that, I'd like VIX to stay below this 30.5, 30.60 where the daily 8 sits. And make its way back down to 30 through 30 and to 29.5, 29.21, our next key level. Basically have like two levels, or two, key levels that are about 20 cents around 29. So for continuation to the upside, want to see VIX continue down to these squeeze bottoms, these key levels, and the daily squeeze below. The daily 50 down there. Yep. Way down at 27. Nice. So if we can continue to depart from 30, that could be, it's a big key cycle level, and we have been above it for quite some time. If we can continue to slip below it and push lower, then we'll see some risk on in the market, some, potential new money coming in. But if we're going to see downside to fill the gap and retest Friday's lows, we'll see VIX get above that 30.5, make its way to 31, and then back up to these squeeze tops around 31.5, 32. So that's it for today. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. I'll see you in the room, in our Discord. If you're new to Predicted Trades, it's free to join our Discord. There's a link in the description. Every Thursday and Friday lately, we have been doing free days where you can test out our tech before you sign up for our subscription. So definitely keep tuning in to prep, and we'll also drop some interesting videos this week to help teach you guys some new things. And definitely join us on Thursday for our first free day of the week. But for everyone else, I'll see you in our live trading room today, all day. Have a good one, folks. Good luck. See you in the room.